Like anyone who's immersed themselves in the world of movies, TV shows and games, I'm always intrigued in the critiquing of those medias. Personally, I often watch films, play games and whatever else for a good story. If that's accompanied by great gameplay, animation or cinematography, then great, and often the best media combines all these things. I am a story lover at heart though, you know? I think about what journey does this show, movie or game take you on? How does it do it? Does everything make sense? So yeah, that's often where I like to criticise things, and how I view them. Everyone's different, especially in terms of subjective art like films, where you can have those people who shun the Marvel movies as bin juice existing alongside those who believe No Way Home deserves an Oscar nomination because it has a decent score on Rotten Tomatoes. When it comes to the voices of authority on media though, the critics and reviewers that assess media and tell us, mouth-breathing masses, what's good and what isn't, I've been rather disappointed lately. In recent times, I've seen 10 out of 10 or 5-star scores plastered all over media products, with one specific game in mind that rhymes with smelled and ding, making me realise just how many of these things there are. These are perfect scores, something that used to be a rarity and now feel like a commodity. Now, you could say here I'm just salty because the majority of critics are disagreeing with my personal opinion on a lot of things, but I'm not here to say, OMG, how could this film or that game only receive a 50%? The real problem for me lies with the existence of a perfect score, and how giving it out nullifies the idea that everything has its flaws. A perfect score given out by a website or publication that prides itself on unbiased reviewing just doesn't sit right with me. Another thing before I talk about all of this video is redundant when we consider the fact that people shouldn't really be listening solely to critics and should form their own opinions on things, but for many people who don't want to spend 60 quid playing or a couple of hours watching something they don't like, they turn to a critic for an opinion. And so I think this video holds value because in the end of the day, although we shouldn't listen to critics, a lot of us do. Right, everyone sitting comfortably? Well, I'm just going to assume you answered yes to that, because I have no idea of knowing. But anyway, let's look at the idea of a 10 out of 10 score, and how it is just kind of pointless. As I said, the 10 out of 10 score seems to be a commodity nowadays, and though I've been seeing this trend for a while, I think it's become really obvious at the release of Elden Ring. Now, I'm not here to clown on Elden Ring. I think the game is great, and as someone who's only played Sekiro prior to this, it acts as a great introduction to the Soulsborne RPGs, really honing the stuff I didn't like the look of in previous games. However, to say that this game, or any game, is a 10 out of 10 is just a bit silly. It seems like people have entirely forgotten what a perfect score means. 10 out of 10 is not, this game's great, but, nor is it even, this is an amazing game. 10 out of 10, or 5 stars, or 3 donkeys out of 3, implies that this is the perfect product. There are no flaws because it gets a 10 out of 10. This is an incredibly weird way to score something, because what it does is it sets in stone that whatever gaming publication gave the game 10 out of 10 doesn't really have an issue with the product, meaning that Elden Ring criticism can't really have the same weight going further on. IGN, for example, can't really tell you that there's a glaring issue in the game because on the review page they've told you it's a masterpiece, it's perfect. Likely there aren't many glaring issues in Elden Ring, but even these small things would prevent it from being perfect, right? Ah, I hear you cry. That's where you're wrong. Because the score reflects the reviewer, not the company behind it. In one sense, you're right. Well done. Because the same guy who said out loud, the exaggerated swagger of a black teen is not someone who speaks for the entirety of GameSpot. However, reviewers are representatives of their given website, unless they have their own platform such as Yahtzee Zero Punctuation within the Escapist publication. Or Total Biscuit, for example, when he was still with us, he had his own platform, his own channel to discuss things. Those people are allowed to say a game they've played or a film they've watched is a 10 out of 10, because then you have the caveat of that review being a wholly personal opinion. Many review YouTubers use this opinion excuse to get away with saying whatever they want about a product and get a bit less hate for it. With an official website like IGN, GameSpot or Eurogamer though, the implication is that these are official resources where you can see the pros and cons of anything weighed up in a fair and unbiased manner. Obviously, all reviews are opinions, but with YouTuber personalities like Yahtzee, you get to know the person and what they like or don't like. There's no telling what a company likes or doesn't like, because so many people contribute to these endless reviews and constant stream of news. Rarely do we know an IGN reviewer the same way we were familiar with Total Biscuit. Therefore, you have to sort of take their word on something being a 10 out of 10, rather than take it with the pinch of salt that you're listening to an individual with their own formed opinions. So, when you look at Elden Ring getting all these perfect scores, it makes people believe there's nothing wrong with the game, which is problematic when there's more than a few things that could turn someone away. A lot of people I spoke to are enjoying the game, of course, because it's good, great even you might say, yet I do find that there are things people have problems with. This is the issue I have primarily in 10 out of 10 reviews, because no piece of art is perfect. It's not meant to be. Not Elden Ring, not Citizen Kane, or even the Minions movie is perfect. There are things that may be perfect to the individual, but everything has its flaws, even if they're minor. 10 out of 10 scores then become redundant through this, as they place perfection on something that was never able to achieve it. It feels like there's been a large rise in this 10 out of 10 gifting as of late, and apart from it being useless and lazy to give something a perfect score without actually showing any critical literacy into the pros and cons of a product, it also feels like some things get multiple perfect scores out of people wanting to follow the trend of reviews more than actually forming their own island of opinion. Now, I do get that to make a controversial point on the internet is kind of crazy nowadays. One wrong post about how Kung Fu Panda 1 is the best of the series, and you end up with 20 billion death threats in your Twitter DMs and sudden photos taken outside your bedroom window, even though you live 3 floors up. Personal experience besides the point, to be out there and against the herd is a bit tricky nowadays. There's so many people having easy access to hate on you. However, I think that if anyone should be able to knuckle down and just say what they think, it has to be critics, right? I simply cannot believe so many individuals played through Elden Ring, sat down to write their reviews, published them, and then thought, wow, everyone else gave it a 10 out of 10 too. What a coincidence. This borders on conspiracy stuff, but I believe that some reviewers see what another person has said and just decide to stick with the program rather than face the hate of the internet. With FromSoft games, the hate is even more vile, especially towards games journalists, considering their previous relationship with the FromSoft games that proved just a little bit too hard for them. Perhaps then Elden Ring is the journalist merely submitting to the hate and deciding to give the game overwhelmingly positive reviews, but that doesn't feel right either. There's no point in making something one of the best games ever reviewed if half of the publications reviewing it were talking about an easy mode in FromSoft games a couple of years ago. Again, I'm not saying Elden Ring doesn't deserve a 9 or even 10 out of 10 from some people. I'm saying that the overwhelming majority of these just feel like hollow reviews. I do even find that the perfect score is fine in small doses, when something really does overachieve in the sense that Elden Ring, The Witcher 3, GTA 5 really does do. But it feels lately like we've all forgotten that anything above a 5 out of 10 should still be considered good. It's hard to even see something as enjoyable unless it's got a 9 or a 10 plastered to it nowadays. Over time, reviewers and critics have become accustomed to acting like a 7 and 8 out of 10 is just an okay product. God forbid something gets a 6, then it's bound to be the worst thing you've ever experienced. It feels like positive scores such as 7 or 8 out of 10 just aren't good enough anymore for people to get the message that something is worth buying, watching, playing, and so the results are twofold. Mediocre products end up with a solid score which doesn't reflect their actual value, and that which is good is held in amazing esteem. It stops people from thinking about the cons of a product merely because it's better than the average. Even something like the recently released D&D animated series, The Legend of Vox Machina, received a load of perfect and amazing scores, despite even fans of the series admitting that it struggles to be anything but a tribute to critical role viewers. Though, I guess this leads me onto my final point with this massive ramble about the problems with the perfect score. I think that, unlike in the early days of criticism, where Mike Reviewer looked at and criticised every game or movie, the personalities of criticism are becoming fewer, with only a few I can name off the top of my head that actually hold criticism at the heart of the content they produce. Therefore, what we have now is those that are reviewing a game, movie or series will likely already have some familiarity and love for the genre, previous entries, or anything else to do with what they're reviewing. This already plants a big bias going in that is again unaccounted for, as the big sites like IGN want you to believe they're objective as possible. This means that already someone could be going into reviewing something and think, well, I'm probably going to give this a very high score anyway because I've been looking forward to it so much. If you're a fan of Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, you're likely going to like Elden Ring, meaning you're not going to give it a 2 out of 10 unless it really messes up. In short, I guess this video is just a mega rant, really, isn't it? But I think the problems with a perfect score have become clear over me just rambling on. The only time it's fair to give something a truly perfect score is when it comes with the backing of your own opinion. I think this is perfect. This is perfect to me. When I look at Elden Ring's perfect scores, I feel like I'm not getting the full story, with the focus placed on the score rather than the reasoning behind it. I also think that the overwhelming positivity in reviewing Elden Ring has left the game with an inflated sense of value, leading to some not seeing the game as impressive as it truly is. Are we going to need an 11 out of 10 rating soon to establish what greatness is again? I do believe Elden Ring is a great game, fully deserving of the positivity it's getting, and I am sorry that it's become the target for this rant. Yet, to just throw perfect scores at something because it's great is not the way to go. It lacks depth, critical literacy, and defeats the point of a perfect score in the first place. Thank you ever so much for watching, and if you've made it to this far, congratulations, you've put up with my rambling for longer than I could. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Again, this is something going a bit out of the waters of the past previous videos, yet it's just something I want to talk about. Hopefully you found it engaging to listen, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks again, bye bye.